I have something important to discuss today, so I need both of you to listen. What? You seem so formal. Actually, I've made a decision about this house. A decision? I was thinking about what she could have possibly decided on her own about our house. Anticipating something unreasonable, I waited for her next words. I sold this house to my daughter and her husband.
Ha!
What? Eric was arguing that the proposal from his parents and sister and her husband was unreasonable. But for me, after hearing their conversation, I felt foolish for trying to maintain a harmonious relationship with them. Discussing who owns the house or who is paying the mortgage seemed pointless, as they would likely just do as they pleased. Then shall we move out? What are you saying? This is our house. We don't need to leave. Eric turned to me, looking surprised. I spoke to him in a voice only he could hear. I have an idea. Let's teach those selfish people a lesson. Okay. I trust you, Tracy. Tell me your idea later. Eric then turned to his parents and sister's family and said clearly, okay. We'll leave. I am Tracy. I'm a working housewife who works from home. I live with my husband Eric and his parents. Living together might be a bit of an understatement. To be precise, his parents moved into our new home. We wanted to prioritize our life as a couple, but we had no choice as they had sold their own house. Unable to turn out his homeless parents, we reluctantly agreed to live with them. As you can guess from this background, our relationship with them wasn't great. Since I spend a lot of time at home, I inevitably spend a lot of time with my in-laws. My father-in-law is retired, and my mother-in-law is a housewife. For them, always being at home, I was an easy target. Tracy, could you make some coffee? For father as well. While watching TV and sitting on the sofa, my mother-in-law, looking bored, called out to me without turning away from the television. Holding freshly laundered clothes, I sighed quietly so they wouldn't hear. She could make her own coffee if she's bored. But I could never say that out loud. Yes. Please wait a moment. I put the laundry back in the basket and headed to the kitchen. I had to prioritize what my in-laws asked, or else they would nag me even more. Despite the hassle, this was the least harmful way to deal with them. I made coffee in their cups and placed them on the living room table. Without a word of thanks. My mother-in-law gave me a nasty look without even touching the coffee cup. You never think ahead, do you? When someone asks for coffee, it's common sense to bring sweets too. My father-in-law took a sip of his coffee, muttered, "It's lukewarm," and silently pushed his cup back to me. Without complaining, I took his cup back to the kitchen, remade the coffee with hotter water, and returned to the living room with some sweets I had bought. I was used to this. Every day, they would find something to complain about, say mean things to me, and do nothing themselves. They would complain about the seasoning of the food, dust on the shelves, or tell me to weed the garden. It's amazing how they always find something to complain about. It's shameless how they moved into our house and acted like this. But if I show that I'm thinking about this, their harassment will only multiply. So, wearing a smile like a mask, I continued to play the role of the good daughter-in-law they imagined. By the way, Tracy, when are you planning to have children? While looking at the newspaper, my father-in-law addressed me. Sigh. Eric is our only son, the heir. It's a problem if you don't have children soon. That's right. Tracy, you're in your mid-30s, aren't you? It's getting harder to conceive at your age, and I want to see my grandchildren soon. Eric and I enjoy our work, so we haven't thought about having children. However, my traditional in-laws could not understand this mindset. They constantly complain about me not getting pregnant yet. What exactly is there to inherit from a former salaryman and a housewife? Thankfully, Eric agrees with me that the whole heir idea is outdated. We're leaving having children to nature. I've recently resorted to this response as an escape. Expressing our views to the in-laws is futile, as they never understand. Arguing would be a waste of effort. Really. You can't be relaxed forever. Maybe you can't have children. You should get a checkup at the hospital. Pretending not to hear, I went to the bathroom to get the laundry I had left earlier. On a certain weekday afternoon, an uninvited guest arrived at our home. It was Eric's sister, Sophia. I also find my sister-in-law difficult to deal with. Hey, there. I'm here. Hi, Dad and Mom. Oh, Sophia. Good of you to come. Make yourself comfortable. I'll say it again, this is mine and Eric's house. The entitlement of the in-laws and the way Sophia acts like she's at her parents' home feels so out of place. Oh, Tracy is here too. Hello. My sister-in-law acknowledged my presence with a lackluster greeting. I forced a smile, said, "Make yourself at home," and started preparing coffee. Of course, Sophia is not on my side. She, along with the in-laws, dumps household chores on me and makes snide remarks. I had a work deadline today and couldn't spend all day on housework. After preparing coffee and sweets, I informed the three that I would be working in my room. What, you're lying about work to avoid us? You're just playing on the computer, right? Work means going out and sweating it out, not staying at home. As expected, they ranted about my work-from-home job. At first, I tried to explain, but it was useless. They never tried to understand my work. You're living off Eric and playing around all day. You're failing as a wife. Exactly. You're too arrogant for a wife. But hey, if you're really working, you must have some savings, right? Lend me some. Sophia grinned and held out her hand to me. She's married but incredibly irresponsible with money. Whenever we go shopping together, she always forgets her wallet and makes me pay. I've never been paid back. Plus, it's always for her clothes, shoes, or accessories, which is just appalling. Eventually, I started making excuses to avoid going out with her. All our money is managed by Eric. I hardly have any to spend freely. This is another excuse I've come up with. Claiming I don't have money to avoid giving it to Sophia has been surprisingly effective. Oh, I see. Sophia looked bored and went off to chat with the parents about something else. I told them to return to my room and left. Luckily, my husband Eric is on my side. After returning from work, Eric would ask me if anything unpleasant had happened. And he would talk to his parents and sister about it. However, this rarely improved the situation. His parents have always doted on his sister Sophia, and Eric felt lonely as a child. Sophia was clever and excelled academically, so maybe his parents had high expectations for her. Eric wasn't a poor student, but he was always compared to Sophia and probably felt inferior. Moreover, Sophia has always been selfish, never satisfied until she gets what she wants. She even took away the gaming console and games Eric had saved up to buy. Even when he complained to their parents, they would just say, "If your sister wants it, let her have it." The game and the money never came back. Repeated incidents like these made Eric lose his patience with both his parents and Sophia. After graduating from college, he left home and kept only minimal contact. In the midst of such a relationship, our cohabitation with his parents began, almost forcibly. Eric seemed exasperated. "Tracy, I'm sorry. You have to spend a lot of time with my parents, right? Is it tough for you?" Honestly, it can be difficult on days when work is tough. But I'm getting the hang of dealing with it and managing somehow. I really want to move out, but it's weird to leave our own house, right? I wonder if there's a solution. Having you on my side makes me the happiest. It's okay. We'll figure something out. Tracy. Thank you so much. With a face about to cry, Eric looked at me. Despite his slight unreliability, I loved the kind Eric. As long as he's on my side, everything will be fine. That's what I thought, but then something happened. One weekend, when both Eric and I were off work, we were in the living room with his parents. His mother started the conversation. I have something important to discuss today, so I need both of you to listen. What? You seem so formal. Actually, I've made a decision about this house. A decision? I wondered what she could have possibly decided about our house. Anticipating something unreasonable, I waited for her next words. I sold this house to my daughter and her husband. Ha! What? Stunned by her unexpected words, I was speechless. Eric was gaping in disbelief. Then, without ringing the bell, Sophia and her husband entered the living room. Hey, there. Oh, are you already starting the talk? Perfect timing. We were just beginning. Great timing. So, you two, this house is ours now, so get out. Ha! Mother-in-law and Sophia grinned, gesturing dismissively at us. Sophia's husband didn't say anything but looked at us with an unpleasant smile. That's the situation. We don't need a useless couple like you. We're going to live here with Sophia and her husband. You two are redundant. That's right. Thanks for building such a nice house. Eric argued that the proposal from his parents and sister and her husband was unreasonable. But for me, after hearing their conversation, I felt foolish for trying to maintain a harmonious relationship with them. Discussing who owns the house or who is paying the mortgage seemed pointless, as they would likely just do as they pleased. Then shall we move out? What are you saying? This is our house. We don't need to leave. Eric suddenly turned to me with a look of surprise. I whispered to him so only he could hear. I have an idea. Let's give those selfish people a lesson. Okay. I trust you, Tracy. Tell me your plan later. Eric then faced his parents and sister-in-law, speaking clearly. Okay. Got it. We'll leave. They seemed delighted to hear his words. Staying there was unpleasant, so we headed to our room to pack our belongings. It took about a week to pack and find a new place, but we finally found a property and moved out. Of course, we didn't tell them our new address. It seemed like his parents, having gotten the beautiful house, lost their attachment to us. They never asked about our new home. Our life as a married couple living alone was so comfortable. It made me wonder if this is how it should always be. We were living a happy married life. About a month after moving, on a weekday when Eric was at work, I was at home working on my computer. My smartphone rang, and it was my mother-in-law. I regretted not having blocked her number, but reluctantly answered the call. Tracy. What on earth is going on? Her angry voice hit me hard. I pulled the phone away from my ear and asked what was wrong. What's wrong? Why isn't the mortgage being paid? The mortgage? Are you talking about the house mortgage? What else would it be? A reminder about the payment came today. What's happening? What do you mean? Why would we pay for the mortgage on a house we're not living in? But we're Eric's family. Isn't it common sense to spend money for family? I sighed loudly so she could hear, thinking, how dare you talk about common sense? They never contributed financially when we lived together. And now they expect their son and his wife, who moved out, to pay the mortgage. What kind of nerve is that? You remember the document you signed when we moved out? The one your father signed because Eric asked? I don't understand these things. That was a document for changing the house's ownership. What? Her shriek, like a scream, leaked from the phone. She must be wide-eyed and trembling with anger. Until now, I had always complied with her demands. But suddenly standing up to her must have taken her by surprise. There was no comfort in her words. It makes no sense to keep the house in our name when we're moving out. Since the ownership has changed, it's obvious that we have no obligation to repay the mortgage. How could you trick us like this? I won't forgive this. Are you happy belittling us? You really do have a nasty personality. It's their fault for signing something without checking. I knew explaining the logic would be pointless. They never listen. I had decided to stop appeasing my in-laws. I will not yield. The method to punish the in-laws, I told Eric about the day we decided to move, was simple. Stop all financial support. My retired father-in-law obviously had no income, only a pension at most. My mother-in-law, a housewife, was the same. Sophia's husband was a company employee, but Sophia only worked part-time. Supporting 4 adults and a house mortgage on his salary alone would be quite challenging. Eric and I were both working, so we had some financial leeway. Anyway, we are not going to pay the mortgage. The house is in your father's name, so please handle it yourselves. Wait a minute, Tracy? Don't hang up. The conversation isn't over yet. I have said all I needed to. Excuse me. Although my mother-in-law seemed to be saying something else, I pressed the end call button. I ignored the numerous calls that followed. I wonder if Eric also received calls. These people are such a nuisance. Half in disbelief, I resumed my work. About 2 weeks after my mother-in-law's call, on a weekend, Eric and I were enjoying our leisurely day. As indoor types, we like to spend our days off watching movies at home and sipping slightly more expensive coffee than usual. However, our peaceful weekend was disrupted by a call. Eric's smartphone rang. It was Sophia. Eric looked clearly annoyed, but he decided to answer. He put her on speaker so I could hear the conversation too. Hello? Finally, you answer. What's with ignoring me, Eric? I'm busy, unlike you. What do you want? I need to borrow some money. No. Why not? I've lent you money many times before, and you never paid it back. I don't have any more to lend to someone like that. There was a moment of silence from Sophia. She had never begged Eric for money before. She always targeted me. She must be confused about how he knew. Did you think I didn't know? I'm aware you've borrowed money from Tracy several times. What? Did Tracy tell on me? That's sneaky. Are you in any position to say that? It's entirely your own fault. You shouldn't be complaining about others. How dare you speak to me like that, Eric? So arrogant. You're asking me for a favor, and yet you have the nerve to say that? I'm hanging up now. Sorry. Don't hang up, please. Maybe you should think before you speak. Anyway, why do you need money? I could imagine Sophia's frustrated face. She's always been aggressive towards Eric and never said sorry, even when she was at fault. This time, she must be really desperate. Sophia weakly answered Eric's question. You might have heard from Mom, but we can't pay the house mortgage and are in trouble. If this continues, we can't stay in the house. Please, help us. I see. Don't be so cold. A family member is in trouble, you know? What do you think, Tracy? Eric turned to me for my opinion. Sophia seemed not to understand why. Why does Tracy come into this now? Because Tracy was the one paying the mortgage for that house. What? What are you talking about? Stop joking at a time like this. Sophia let out a dry laugh. Eric continued, sounding exasperated. I'm not joking. Tracy earns much more than I do. But she was always at home playing on her computer. She can't have an income. Haven't I explained before? Tracy is a designer for a famous brand. She chose to work from home so she could balance her job and household chores since she can work anywhere with a computer. I didn't know that. I thought she was just a housewife living off of Eric, and now this. Sophia seemed extremely shocked. I had explained my work to her and my in-laws several times. Whether they thought it was a joke or simply weren't interested in my words, I don't know, but it seemed they hadn't remembered any of it. Eventually, I gave up on explaining. But if you have that much money, you can keep paying the mortgage, right? Ask Tracy to do it, Eric. We're family, so it's only natural to help each other. Sophia's meekness had vanished, returning to her usual irresponsible self regarding money. Just as I was about to retort, Eric finally raised his voice. Enough already. After all the terrible things you and our parents have done to Tracy and me, now you expect help when you're in trouble? That's just too much. What's gotten into you, Eric? Thinking I'd always do what you say is a huge mistake. I'm blocking all your contacts. Don't get involved with us ever again. Block us? You can't be serious. If you're that angry, you should say something. But I'm sorry. Please help this time. It's too late for saying sorry now. You probably don't even understand why I'm angry. But think a simple sorry will do. I don't want to be involved with such careless people. And I don't want you near Tracy. I'm hanging up now. Eric then immediately ended the call and blocked all contacts from his parents and Sophia's family. He told me to do the same, which I followed. I was relieved to think we wouldn't have to deal with them anymore. Eric, not used to getting angry, looked tired but smiled gently at me. One evening, Eric came home from work looking very tired. Welcome home. You look exhausted. Are you okay? As I prepared dinner, I spoke to Eric. He sighed while taking off his suit, a sound somewhere between a sigh and a response. Actually, today my parents and sister stormed into my office. What? Why would they do that? I guess they wanted to see you and get some money. But since you work from home and they don't know where we live, they probably decided to come to my office. So, they came to your office just because they wanted money? Yeah. We sat down at the dining table, continuing the conversation while eating. The receptionist told me I had visitors. When I asked who, it turned out to be my parents. I asked her to send them away without meeting them myself. I see. That must have caused some trouble at your office. After that, they caused a scene, shouting about how I had abandoned my family and demanding money. The receptionist said they couldn't handle it alone, so security called the police. They've been instructed not to let them into the building again. Police involvement. But I'm glad the company is handling it. Eric smiled sadly, acknowledging that they were still his blood-related family. It must be more complicated for him than I can imagine. But they brought it upon themselves. They should reflect on their actions. The thing that upsets me the most is how they hurt you, Tracy. I was surprised by Eric's words. Despite saying I was okay, the in-laws' actions had deeply hurt me. But Eric didn't just take my words at face value, he truly cared about me. With him, I felt I could stay together and trust him. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, as always. The in-laws, after storming into Eric's office, were severely scolded by the police. It was just a stern warning this time, but they were told they could be arrested if they did it again. Since then, they haven't shown up at his office. Eric seemed relieved that they might not come anymore. He had also heard about the in-laws' situation from a relative. Apparently, Sophia and her husband couldn't cover the mortgage with their income alone and had to take out loans. Fearing the mounting debt, they eventually sold the house. The in-laws, not good at housekeeping, had let the place become a mess. Despite being a new house, the appraisal value was quite low. With no other way to pay off the debt, they sold the house but couldn't cover the entire loan amount, and are now living in a cheap apartment. I made sure to tell my relatives not to share any information about us. Everyone's fed up with their actions, and no one's willing to help them. I think that's for the best. I don't want to be involved with them anymore. Me neither. Our new home was actually a high-rise condo, chosen for its excellent security in case the in-laws tried anything. With a concierge on duty, we asked them to turn away the in-laws if they ever appeared. Just thinking that we didn't have to interact with them anymore made me feel much lighter. Our lives continued to be work-focused, but we cared for each other and enjoyed our time together. Eric helped with household chores, and we relaxed together on weekends or occasionally went shopping. The happiness of sharing time just as a couple was immense. I hoped this life would last forever. That was my wish.